It's cool, whatever you're doing, wherever you are. And hello.
Hello.
Okay, but please make sure you are muted if you're not speaking or anything. We'll be open to questions later on in the session. Allow me to introduce Ian Calvert again. Ian joined us for a session a couple of weeks ago, our first repeating coach. So big thank you for giving us double the time. So our session today will be about storytelling and giving narratives of impact. Ian is the founder at Further, for those of you who did not join last time. He is an internationally recognized expert on purpose-driven businesses, and he will share with us tonight his wisdom on storytelling. Ian, I guess now I can hand over the ground to you.
Thanks, Zaina. And hi, everyone. It's good to see a few familiar faces. I think, yeah, Yuri, Taras, Anastasia. So it's good that I didn't scare you off last time. So hopefully that means that you saw some value in that. I must say, I did a lot of reflection after that session because we were talking about human performance and confronting challenges. And afterwards I reflected and thought it just felt wrong that there you are in the situation that you are in Ukraine, and there's far more that we can learn from you in terms of being pushed to the edge of what you're capable of. So I thank you for your participation in that session. And so today we're going to be talking about storytelling, and storytelling often, and again, we're going to be talking quite a lot of kind of art and culture references and movie references. So I'm hoping you'll be familiar with that. I think they're fairly global references that we're going to be talking to. But just the word storytelling, it's increasing in its relevance, particularly for entrepreneurs. But some people still see storytelling, they confuse it with marketing. So it's like, how do we market our business? Well, we tell our story. Often they confuse it with pitching. Yeah, so like how do we tell our story to investors? And really, I want to stress that the session that we're doing tonight is about how to create stories that might be stories into the future, that actually story equals strategy. And I'm going to that's what's written on my first slide. So I'll give you a spoiler alert for that. But importantly, this session is not about how to tell a story. So this session is not about pitching skills or presentation skills. It's about how to build a story that creates a response from an audience in the actual story itself. So not in how it's told or how it's presented. And how a well-developed story can really be an incredibly powerful business tool that doesn't come at the end of a process, because often we think, right, we have to develop our business plan as entrepreneurs, we have to develop our product, etc. And then when everything's ready, we go out and tell our story. And what I want, hopefully, you to see tonight is that actually writing that story, that compelling story, and using some of the best tips and hacks from some of the best storytellers in the world is a really valuable strategy tool to set a vision for what you stand for as a business and where you want to go as a business. So with that, just to share the words that I've already shared, if there's only one thing that you take away from tonight's session, is that the story is another way of saying strategy, because it has a beginning, it has a middle, it has challenges, it has characters, it has cliffhangers, it has tense moments, and it has a resolution. And so we're going to be using examples from some of the best storytellers in the world, and a lot of that is kind of movie based. So we're going to be hacking some examples from Hollywood, from the great novels that have been written, and how do you build that story? And please, this is going to be a very interactive session. I'm going to get you to do some exercises, and again, if there are language issues, please let me know, and feel free just to ask the whole time if there are questions. But please participate in some of the exercise we're going to do, because hopefully you'll find them valuable. So you may be familiar with Simon Sinek, and I'm sure a lot of you have seen his videos about starting with why. And often when we tell stories, and when we're telling stories about our business, then we often start with what we do. Yeah. So I run a business that makes this product, or that delivers this product. And sometimes once we've done that, we then say, well, this is how we do it. So this is our way of delivering that product. But often at the end, the why we do it, the purpose, the problem we are solving comes at the end. And the way the brain receives that information is often, we touched on this in the last session. We have our frontal cortex, our neocortex, which processes rational information, okay, which processes facts. But a lot of the most powerful motivators that we have as human beings, and that includes investors or financiers or anybody you might be telling your story to, often the most powerful responses we get are very emotional responses, which live deep inside our what's called the limbic brain. And if you think as entrepreneurs, particularly at an early stage, often all you have is the story of your business. You might not have a product yet. You might not have customers yet. You might not have a fleshed out organization. And all you have to tell is the story of what your business will be. And often so pretty much every day, and I want you to just think for a minute now, think how many times a day do you as entrepreneurs tell the story of your business? And that might be a 30-second story. You might be given the opportunity to tell a 2-minute story. And think, so how many times do you do that? And how many different people do you tell that story to? And typically we think of, as entrepreneurs, we think of telling the story to either to our customers or to our funders. But often the hardest story you have to tell is to your spouse, to your partner, to your girlfriend, boyfriend, to your mother, to your best friend, about why you're doing this. Yeah. And so unless that story is compelling and emotive and captures people's imaginations, it's going to be difficult for you to get your business moving. Whereas if you can develop a really powerful story around your business, then your family will support you, your friends will support you, your community will support you, and people will buy your product or your service because they believe in why you're doing this. So just, and I don't want you to feedback there, but just take a minute just to think, like today, I know it's 7 o'clock in Ukraine. Did you tell a story? Did you tell the story of your business to someone today? And who was it? Yeah. Okay, so if you've reflected on that, and as I say, as an entrepreneur, sometimes all you have is your story, yeah? But if you start the story with the why, which is usually, what problem am I solving? And I, as Zaina said, and for those of you who were in my last session, I work particularly to support and coach social entrepreneurs, so impact entrepreneurs. So the same principles apply if it's just a straight commercial enterprise. Ultimately, we're all trying to solve a problem, and a problem that people struggle with. And that problem might be a social issue or an environmental issue, or it might just be a day-to-day human life issue. But we as entrepreneurs are the people who try and solve those problems with a sense of purpose. So there is a mission about this. And as soon as you talk emotionally about things, you provoke a response. And the response often is in the form of a drug, which is actually a human hormone called oxytocin. And I don't know if any of you have heard of oxytocin, but often it's called the love drug. It's the drug, it's the hormone that when we're watching a movie, even though we know the movie is fiction, that sometimes we cry because it brings out an emotional response. And oxytocin is the hormone in our body that makes us want to collaborate with people. So it's very linked to empathy. So when we hear a story or where we see a situation and we feel compelled as a human being to respond to it in some way, then what is being stimulated in your system is oxytocin. Now, how this relates to storytelling, at Harvard University, they did a really interesting experiment with two groups or two teams who basically were asked to present their business in two different ways to the same audience. And the first team of people presented their business to the audience in very factual, typical kind of investor pitch way. So it was done with PowerPoint slides, with problem statements, with all the usual factual, practical approach, a very hard sell pitch. And what they did at the end of that pitch was they drew blood. They took a blood sample from the audience and measured the levels of oxytocin in the blood, which you can do. Then they got the second team of people to tell the story of exactly the same business, but to tell it in a far more story-driven way. So it was a story with characters, with a kind of, with settings, with suspense, with challenges, and with resolutions. So it was told really as a story. And then what they did to the same group of people was drew their blood again and measured the levels of oxytocin. And as you would imagine, the levels of oxytocin from the second group were off the charts. And what oxytocin makes people want to do is to help. It makes you want to collaborate with people. It makes you want to hug people. It makes you want, if you see someone in the street struggling and you want to help them up. And I guess particularly in the context that you're operating in at the moment with so many human challenges, that human stories, powerful human stories, are infinitely more powerful than just factual stories. Yes, people will need the numbers. Your investors will need the numbers. Your investors will need to know all of that data. But if you can tell them a compelling human story, that's most of the battle won. The numbers will just help them stick with the decision that they've already made. So there is a science to storytelling. Storytelling isn't just a kind of Hollywood thing. There's neuroscience behind it and the importance of it. Sorry, I'm going to check my chats as I go along, just in case there are any candid things. But maybe, Zaina, can I ask you to keep an eye on the chat? Because I'll be busy in the flow. If there are any questions that come along, please, please let me
I
know.
usually give the answers in the chat at the end of the session. If you want, I can give them as they come.
Okay, look, if there's anything that maybe you can just decide if there's anything that needs to be answered right now, but if there are general questions, we can keep them till the end.
Okay.
All right. So now we're going to get into a first exercise. And I'm hoping the cultural relevance will work here. So if you look at those words, in a world where, what does that stimulate an idea? Where have you heard those words before? And feel free to unmute because I've got you on full screen, so I can't see everybody. So do those words, in a world where have you heard or seen those words before?
Sci-fi movies.
Sci-fi movies. If I say those words in this voice, in a world where.
It's Hercules. It's no.
It's Hercules. It's basically any movie trailer you've ever seen.
Okay.
Okay. So whether it's a sci-fi movie, whether it's Hercules, whether it's an action movie, at least 50% of movie trailers start with the words, in a world where. Okay. And as you know, most movies nowadays are kind of 90 minutes, 2 hours long. Some movies are like 3 hours. And so you can imagine the skill in taking a 3-hour movie and turning it into a 1-minute movie trailer. Yeah. Because you've got to capture the story in 1 minute. Everything that happens in those 3 hours, you've got to capture that. And often we as entrepreneurs, everybody knows about the elevator pitch, yeah, where you walk into an elevator, there's Richard Branson or whoever, some funder in front of you, and you've got the time it takes to get from the first floor to the 5th floor to tell him your story. So the ability to tell a story in a short space of time. Now, what the ingredients of a good movie trailer are, okay, are setting the scene. So in a world where this problem exists, yeah. So whatever the sector that you're working in or the market that you're working in. So in a world where it's difficult to access this product, or in a world where whatever that your sector might be as an entrepreneur, yeah, and so that's the situation that exists. And what is the threat? That people cannot, and are in a situation that is threatening to them. Okay, and please understand what we're doing here is all a little bit of exaggeration, but underneath this is a really powerful tool. So in a world where this is the situation and our world is in danger because this is how bad the situation is, then all of a sudden the hero is introduced. So whether that is you, the entrepreneur, or your business, your product, yeah. And in a typical movie trailer, it doesn't tell you the solution because they want you to go and see the movie. So it doesn't tell you whether they do it, but it sets up the challenge, right? So what I want you to do now is take the next 2 minutes to write a movie trailer for your organization, yeah? And I want you to deliberately make it quite kind of dramatic, okay? So don't write a boring thing, okay? Because we can always dial it back, but let's dial it up. And I want you to write, using this structure, a movie trailer for your organization that you can read in 30 seconds. Okay. Does everybody get that? Okay. All right. So using this structure as a guideline, if you think of it in a different way, but what would be the voiceover? What would be the narrative for a movie trailer for your organization? Okay. So you've got 2 minutes to do that. And then I'm going to ask somebody to read their movie trailer. Okay, just take another minute. Okay, so I'm gonna stop sharing so I can see you all. So I want a brave volunteer to read the movie trailer for their organization.
Okay, let me begin, guys.
Yuri, hey Yuri.
I'm not sure.
There's one thing that I have to tell you. You have to read your movie trailer in movie trailer voice. Okay.
Okay.
In a world where, okay.
In a world of wartime in Ukraine, where no one wants to buy your product, only AIM team. AIM is the name of our company. AIM team is wandering in international market to make our product global. That's it.
Well done. Excellent. I'd come and watch that movie. Okay. Anyone else?
Yeah, I
Aras,
guess I can.
why did I know you were going to unmute yourself there? Huh?
Yeah, anyway, just didn't finish it, but sorry for that. So I just will try to go as it goes. So in a world where people want to give meaningful and useful gifts to their close ones, friends, relatives, but it's ending up with spending too much time, anxious, and finally giving something that people will never use. Only our application can help them, can connect them, and can make their gifting happier for for improving their connections, their relations, and having a good time together.
Excellent. Yeah, because what you're doing, you're setting up the human need. Yeah. So that's what In a World Where does. So in a world where this happens, and again, whoever you're telling the story, you're pulling them in with that. So thank you for that, Taras. Anyone else?
Thank you for this framework. It's really helpful.
There's a couple more really good ones coming, so don't go away. Anyone else?
Let me speak,
I'll
please.
I'll try.
Okay.
Oh, Alexis.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Alexis, you go first, and then we'll do Andrew.
Okay. In a world where developers can earn 3 times lower salary for the same work, labor market transparency is needed more than ever. And our product could bring this market transparency and facilitate efficient labor markets globally.
Wow, I'd come and watch the whole of your movie with that. If that's my sector, you just say what you just said now, and you've got me through the door into a meeting to discuss what you do. Yeah. Excellent. Andrew.
Great, I'll try. In a world where typical professions are not needed more, everybody must be ready to be fired one day. But we created a way to be always up to date on modern technologies and trends, a way to learn better and in interactive, exciting way. Are you ready to help your employees keep their skills up to date and to be happy?
Wow, I'm there. And that's it. And the thing is, and because as entrepreneurs, we have that urge to tell people everything. Yeah. To give them everything in that 30-second, 60-second pitch. But you want to leave them in suspense because you're not going to close the deal in the first meeting. Yeah, you've got to give them suspense. You know, can we do this? What is the magic? What is the secret in this? So you get them to come and watch the whole movie. Max, you got your hand up.
Yeah, thank you so much. I hope you can hear me. So let me try to do it in the most dramatic way I can. So in a world of 2022, where law and technology have immeasurable divide between them, where technology has been sprinting towards the future, but the law is stuck in the past. There are people who struggle to innovate and stay legal, but there is light even in the middle of the night. Those brave souls embracing technology and building bridges across this canyon between the future and tradition, between technology and the law. Come in this autumn, legal notes.
My word. Did you just write that now, or did you read that off your website?
I think it's not yet on the website, but we will consider
I think it will,
this idea.
By tomorrow morning, it will be, I promise you.
Quite possibly. Yeah, thanks so much for the exercise.
That's great. No, that's cool. Zaina, did you want to say something? Did you want to try? You going to read yours? Yes, come on.
Yes, I'll give it a try. All right. In a world where startup hubs around the world are Halloweening, we as a startup hub in Ukraine are prepping our bunker. Co-working bunker. You know, it sounded more dramatic in my head.
No, awesome. Thank you. Cool. Anybody else? There's another even better exercise that we're going to do in a few minutes. So keep thinking. But again, just the learning here, the note is don't be scared to be dramatic. Yeah, don't be scared to speak to emotions. Don't be scared to elicit a human response. You can always give them the facts and the data at a later stage. If you start, it's like any, a date, whether you're a guy or a girl, you don't want to get into sort of factual stuff first. You want to keep it emotional, keep it romantic up front, and use the power of that storytelling. Okay, so we're going to go back now. Okay, you can see that. Okay, so do you all know this character? Yep, I can't see. Oops, sorry. Yeah, and this character. Okay. And this character. And this one. Yeah, most of you, I think, because these are fairly, a lot of it's Disney, but most of it's Universal films that hopefully you've seen. Any excuse to put Gal Gadot in the presentation? Okay, so these are all characters from movies. And I'm going to show you that actually all of their stories are exactly the same story, okay? But not only are these stories from fictional people, but these are stories from real people. And it's exactly the same story, exactly the same structure. And somebody close to my heart, Nelson Mandela, his journey, his story is exactly the same as all those characters. And I don't know if anybody, I'm sure somebody in the group has heard of this concept of the hero's journey, right? Again, I can't see all of you because I've got my screen showing, so I won't ask you to put your hands up. But there was a American writer called Joseph Campbell, who in the 1960s wanted to know what made some of the greatest stories ever written. What was the structure? And what he realized is that all the great stories follow the same structure. And this is a really interesting exercise. And obviously you as entrepreneurs might not define yourself as the hero. Yeah. So this isn't just your personal journey. You're not trying to make yourself sound like a hero, because often there are teams of you. So this is more about the journey of the business. But to tell the story as to how your business started, the why, if you remember at the beginning, the why of your business and what the journey is to its final destination, this is a really interesting framework. So typically, so if you think of some of those characters, yeah, so usually a movie like this will start, and if you look in the middle circle, this is kind of where it happens. So if we start at 1 o'clock on the clock, it starts in the ordinary world, and our hero is living his or her daily life, and they have a sort of limited awareness of the problem. They kind of know that there's a challenge out there, but actually, life carries on. But then over time, that problem becomes greater, or that situation becomes greater, and they feel the need to do something about it. So there's that call to adventure, but then usually they back away. Yeah. And there's a sort of fear or resistance to change. It's like, no, this problem is too big. The problem of, I forget who it was saying, where the labor market, how do you change a labor market? We can't do that, surely. But then usually what happens for any of these heroes that we mentioned, there is a conversation that happens. They meet the mentor. So Luke Skywalker meets Obi-Wan Kenobi, yeah, where Black Panther meets T'Challa, the previous king. He has a conversation with the ghost of the character. Mulan finally meets the I forget who it is, that she doesn't think she can go and fight in the place of her father, but she can. So they overcome the fear, and then they cross the threshold. So they're no longer in the ordinary world now. They move into the threshold of the extraordinary world, and they're committed to this change. Then what happens is they're put to the test. Are they strong enough? And so those of you who've seen the Rocky movie, or even the Mulan movie, there's always that scene in the movies where they take their training period and usually they set it to music, and they collapse like 6 months of training into a 2-minute music video. So you see Rocky pumping iron, doing his push-ups, doing his training, sweating, running along the beach, running up the steps of the Philadelphia Public Library. And all of that is like experimenting with the challenge, getting themselves ready to go and tackle this problem. And then what they do is they approach the enemy. So for Rocky, he's climbing into the ring with the current world champion. For Luke Skywalker, he's arriving on the Death Star. Yeah. For Mulan, she's now confronting the Hun, the battle with the Hun. And that's where the big conflict happens, where they're grappling with the problem. And then finally they triumph. And I'm mixing all of these movies together here, but where they think they're victorious, and they seize the sword, and they think that the hero has now prevailed. But now, just when you think everything is happy and we can all go home, they then start on the journey back to life. And often there's that scene in the movie that you would know, where you think the villain, the baddie, is dead, and then all of a sudden they resurrect. Yeah, and there's a final last-minute shootout where the guy you thought was dead has resurrected and somehow come to life. And so there are always the last-minute challenges and dangers, but eventually the hero returns home with the golden chalice, or the elixir of life. And so every great story follows that arc. Yeah. And we're not going to do the exercise, because for each of you to write that, it's like a 3-hour exercise. But what I'll do is share these slides with Zaina afterwards. And I want you to think about your business as that journey, you as the entrepreneur, the journey that you've been through. And it's a really good way of understanding, firstly, and remember what I said up front, story equals strategy. So where are you in your strategy? How far are you in your strategy? But then what does the future look like, and what is the story you're going to tell in future? Okay, so there's another tool that you can use. But now we're going to go back to Nemo. And for those of you who are students of movies, you'll know that Nemo is a character of Pixar animation. And Pixar were this small, amazing animation studio that eventually got bought by Disney. And it was almost a reverse takeover, because John Lasseter, who was the founder of Pixar and a genius storyteller, a genius filmmaker, he's now the creative director of Disney. But when they made, so the other movies that Pixar made, so they made Cars, they made Toy Story, they made WALL-E, what are the other ones? Some of the other ones. Anyway, they made some amazing, amazing movies. And again, every single movie that they make follows the same structure. And if you have the time, if you Google Pixar in a box, they've basically made available online all of their secrets as to how to make great movies. And one of the episodes on there is called The Story Spine. And it's all around, how do you structure a story? And every film they make follows this story. And it's very similar to the hero's journey structure. And so I'm going to read you the story of Nemo according to this structure. Okay? Once upon a time, there was a fish called Marlin who loved his son Nemo more than anything. And every day, Marlin tried to protect Nemo from the ocean that he feared, until one day, Nemo was taken away by a scuba diver. Because of this, Marlin had to leave the safety of his home reef to find his son. Because of that, Marlin ran into sharks, jellyfish, and other dangers. And because of that, Marlin was forced to take a leap of faith until finally, Marlin had to let go of his fear and trust that Nemo had what it takes to survive on his own. Ever since that day, Marlin gave Nemo the space he needed to learn on his own. Okay. Now, we use this structure with every single entrepreneur that we work with. And the beauty of this, again, is that you might, even if you're just starting out, so once upon a time is the same as in a world where. So once upon a time, this was the situation. And every day, this is what it looked like for the people who experienced that situation. Until one day, an entrepreneur came along and thought they had a better way of doing this or of how to solve the problem. And because of this, they took the first steps on the journey and created a prototype. And because of that, they were able to prove their concept and secure funding. And because of that, they were able to grow their business, take it to scale, until finally they were able to reach a broad market with their product. And ever since then, their customers have been able to solve the problem that was originally designed for. Now, the beauty of this structure is that you can be anywhere in this level. So even if you're starting out, so once upon a time, every day this is the situation, until one day I've come along. Now, what you're able to do, and this is where story equals strategy, it's like, so if I'm telling this story into the future, what's the first thing that needs to happen? So the first thing that needs to happen is we develop a product that people like. Yeah. And because people like it, and we can prove that they like it, and they tell us how much they love it, probably the next thing is then we can start going to investors. Yeah. So because of that, we were able to raise finance. And what happened, and what will happen because of that? So you're constantly telling your story into the future. So because of that, if we get an investor, how can that get us to the stage where until finally now, or until finally might be, we've been able to get traction in our market in Ukraine, but now we can take our product and service to the world. And ever since then, or in future, what will the future look like? That our product will be everywhere and will make millions. Okay. So what I want to do is show you how that can tell a story for a very small but amazingly talented entrepreneur. Oh, sorry. And I'm going to come back to this. So this is what it looks like. So what is the problem that existed? And again, you can tell this story from the future. Yeah. So you might only be at stage 3, but you can tell that story from the future. So we're going to come back to this. But now I want to tell you the story of this amazing young girl who came into one of our programs. You'll see she had a can of Red Bull in her hand. So this was the very first Red Bull program that I ran. She was 21 years old, and she'd come up with an idea, because in South Africa, there are so many different problems, and she came up with an idea that solved a number of different problems. And the way she did that was she developed this backpack. So a lot of little kids who live in the outlying rural areas of South Africa had nothing to carry their books in. But also, more importantly, they had no electricity at home. So if you notice, this backpack has a little solar panel in it. And as the kids walk to school, that solar panel would charge. And then when they got home from school, they attached the solar panel to a light, and all of a sudden they had light to study by. So not only was it solving an educational problem, also the backpacks, you'll see that they're made of a kind of plastic. So that plastic was made out of disused plastic bags that were littered all over the environment. And what this young girl did, her name was Tato Katlanier. So she and her team would go and gather up all the plastic bags they could. They would then melt them down into a fabric. They would then make these backpacks, put the solar panel in, and they would get big companies around South Africa to then buy hundreds of these bags and give them to kids in the rural areas, so that not only did they have something to carry their books in, they were also cleaning their local environment by collecting the plastic bags, and they were providing them the light to study by. So this was a beautiful, beautiful project. And over time, Tato, the girl, in the space of, I think, 2 years, she gave 10,000 of these school bags to kids in need across South Africa. So I'm now going to read her story using this framework. Once upon a time, children in rural South Africa had no access to electricity, were surrounded by waste, and had to walk a long way to school. And every day they were unable to do their homework at night as there was no light to study by. Until one day, Tato Katlanier created a school backpack made of recycled plastic bags that also contained a solar-powered light. Because of this, the children were able to carry their books to school, and whilst walking were able to charge the solar-powered light and were able to use the light at nighttime for their studies. Because of that, they were able to perform better at school, and the environment was cleared of plastic bags. Because of that, Tato and her company were able to secure local and international funding partnerships until finally they were able to provide 10,000 school bags to children across South Africa. And ever since that day, all those children have been able to thrive at school and reach their full potential. Okay. So you see how powerful it is to use this structure, because not only does it set up your why, so what is the problem, but it also allows you to think through, into the future, what are the steps that need to happen to get to the final result? And so a lot of you won't be at the ever since then stage. You're somewhere in the middle. But if you use this to tell the story of your business into the future, then that's your strategy. Okay. So what we're going to do now is I'm going to leave this slide up, and I'm going to give you 5 minutes to write your story using this structure. So you have to say once upon a time, and it forces you to be short and concise. So don't write some long novel that's going to take 3 hours. When you read this, I want it to be the same length as the 2 examples that I did, the Nemo example, and then the example for Tato. So use this, and I'm sure for a lot of you, this will be a defining moment, because it'll be finally a way that you find that you can tell your story in a compelling, emotive way, and that maybe your strategy just fell into place. Okay, so I'm going to leave this up. You've got 5 minutes, and then I'm going to ask for some people to volunteer to read their story. Okay. Okay, I'll be back in 5 minutes. Well, firstly, any questions? Is everybody clear? Okay, everyone's clear. Okay, 2 more minutes. Okay, 1 more minute. Okay. Okay, we want a volunteer. Taras, you're my favorite. Okay.
Okay. Yeah, and sorry, could you please return back this slide because I was not
Oh, sure.
taking the first part. I was just writing my if it's
Yeah, there we go.
okay, thank you. So okay, once upon a time, people were trying to choose good gifts for their friends for Christmas, let's say. And every time they had a Christmas, it was quite hard to select an appropriate gift this time because of the history of previous gifts and previous years. Until one day, we noticed that problem and wanted to help people and make their life a bit easier in this area. And because of this, we studied gifts giving researches and closely worked with several psychologists on that problem. And because of that, we better understood why those problems happen, why gift giving is so important, and how it's possible to fix those problems. And because of that, we developed the solutions and some recommendations for people that could help them in this area. And until finally, we shared our results and presented our application to the public. And ever since then, people feel a bit happier and less worried when it comes to holidays and choosing some presents.
Brilliant. So cool. What I like about the way you use the because of this, because of that, because of that, you use that not as how did we grow our market, but it was how do we develop the product? You know, we learned this, we did this research, and because of that, we understood this. And because of that, so the product only got introduced towards the end, which was a really powerful way of telling it because it shows the depth of research and development that you did. So you can, you know, and that shows that you can use this structure in different ways. Yeah, you can use, yeah, whatever fits to your business. So thank you for that. Well done. Okay. Anyone else? Come on, there must be somebody else out there. Where's Yuri? He's usually good at volunteering. Oh, there he is. Anastasia, you're smiling. You look like you've got a story to tell. Well,
I don't really like it yet. I need to work more on it.
all right. But do you see the potential of using this structure?
Yeah.
Yeah.
For sure.
Okay. Alexis, you just unmuted yourself.
Yes, I'm ready. So let me read.
Okay.
It's better. Okay. Once upon a time, remote workers were stuck with wage inequality and barriers to entry into a global remote labor market. And every day they had to accept lower wages and inefficient intermediacy of various intermediaries to work with US and European clients. Until one day, we created a global labor market pricing platform where every remote worker and every US-EU client could find actual prices for a given set of skills. Because of this, it became much easier for clients to price remote jobs better and attract best workers faster. Because of that, workers understood which jobs pay more and started upskilling to switch to new market segments, until finally global remote labor market became much more transparent, commoditized, and efficient.
Amazing. Yeah, it's just a sort of seamless flow of logic there. Yeah. How does that feel for you, Alexis, now describing your business like that?
I think it's a perfect framework for storytelling.
Yeah. Yeah, well, because as I said, that framework, Pixar use it for every movie, and every movie generates billions of dollars. So it works. Okay. Oleg, I'll just read Oleg's one. Yeah, oh, sorry. Andrei is saying we need time. Okay. Well, look, we don't have to do it. I mean, you can take this away. As I said, I'll share the slides with Zaina. But let me just read Oleg's one. In the world where businesses were looking for space to grow, we found a perfect location which gives everybody feeling of happiness, and we developed a location that is nice and comfortable. We introduced infrastructure that provides our partners with the possibility to work and relax. The community grew and different people met their new partners and the creative place is set. Yeah. Excellent. Okay, anybody else want to try?
I'll try to
Andrew.
share my story. It hasn't finished yet, but I've tried to read it. Once upon a time, our founder had a SaaS startup, until one day his clients were unable to understand how to use it, and how his new employees weren't onboarded well and haven't trained well. He looked at the market but couldn't find any good solution for that, until one day he hasn't created the first version of the academy for his project. It was mainly focused on being interactive and simple for end user. People like it, and because of that, people started asking how we created that academy and how to use it for them. And it was the beginning of Academy Ocean company. Because of that, companies started to onboard and train their employees and customers better. Because of that, it allowed us to create a new way of personalizing the learning process for each learner called dynamic content. Until then, we created a perfect solution for organizations and became a standard of learning for all the industries. And finally, it helped all employees to feel better and companies to grow faster.
Excellent. Really cool. Anyone else? Okay, look, I realize, 5 minutes probably isn't enough time, but I think please use this. And again, remember that this is a strategic tool. This isn't just copy or text to put on your website. This allows you to plan your story into the future. But if you, again, just to recap what we've been through this evening, number one, the power of emotional stories, the power of story-driven communication, of characters and drama and suspense. That will get you through the door. Yes, you'll need to give people information, etc., but having a strong, powerful story based on emotion is the most important thing. That what that does is it stimulates a desire for people to want to work with you and support you. So if you're telling an emotional story to your husband, to your wife, to your boyfriend, girlfriend, mother, if you tell them that story about why it matters to you, then they will support you and life will be much easier if they're on board. And that you can use this story strategy, any of these tools, whether it's the movie trailer tool or now this Once Upon a Time, to really crystallize what your strategy is and what the stages are. And often, when we're working with social impact projects, with social entrepreneurs, that section where you go, because of this happened, because of that happened, That's what in social impact world you call your theory of change. You know, if we do this, then this will happen. And because that happens, this is what will happen. And because that happens, eventually, this is the thing, as we use the example with Tato's backpack. So it's far more than just a story tool, it's a strategy tool. So straight after this call, Zaina, I'll share it with you, and then you can share it with the group. All right. Any questions or comments? I'd love to have your feedback. Was this useful? Was this valuable?
This was super cool. Super cool.
Excellent.
Yeah, and what's important is to add lyrics into the story, because, you know, all these figures and statistics, they might appeal to investors or financial kind of world people, but let's say the true story touches hearts, and that's much more important than financial aspect.
Exactly. And you can always send them the finances, you know, by email afterwards. You know, they want that, they want to read that. So yes, you know, you can share some numbers, and sometimes a big number that either sets up the size of the problem or the size of the opportunity. You know, investors love talking about total addressable market. So imagine if you tell this story about once upon a time, this was the situation, and every day, you know, 3 million people suffered from this problem. So you can build the numbers in. Yeah, but it's still got to be in a story structure. Yuri, thank you. I will actively listen and eat your wisdom, but could not be your hero of your interactive exercises. Thank you for that. Okay. Any other comments or observations on what we've been doing?
I don't know if possible, is that a question or not? I was a part of different companies in the past and different startups, and more than often, let's say, I probably just saw a few cases when the story is real. I mean, when the story really corresponds to what the company is doing. Because in the modern world, people like to create some story which shows them from good side. I mean, explain their business or other kind of things. But it looks like everyone, and starting from the employees, understand that it's not true. I mean, this story is not about really what they are doing currently, and they are. So there is some, let's say, some damaging part of a not true story inside the company, and it's starting affecting everything around. I mean, starting from employees and customers and other kind of things. So I would like to mention that we all need to be based on the real stories, whatever it means. I mean, whatever it is.
Exactly, and you know, there's the phrase in the entrepreneur world, fake it till you make it. And unfortunately, if you're telling a fake story, you're not going to make it. So you're right. You can, whilst yes, you want to make everything we've been talking about this evening is to make things emotional and dramatic, but they've still got to be grounded in reality and truth. Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Andrew. Cool, guys. It's gonna.
I just wanted to actually read out Ariana's "In a World Where" statement, which she posted on the chat. Although I would strongly encourage her to say it herself, because I botched my own statement when I said it out loud, and I don't. But I still want it said because it's very beautiful, and it's very fitting to this program that she helped build. Here we go. In a world where founders and CEOs are changing the world, Many feel lonely, not good enough, and unsure. I walk side by side with them through everything they experience to uplift and coach them, so that perhaps they might just solve one of humanity's many challenges and be happy and healthy while doing so. And yes, I have to say she does that, and we're all very grateful for that. Oh, and she just shared the link to an article on entrepreneur.com about the coaching program, which is super also cool.
Cool. Yeah, Ariane, thanks again from not just, just for, and Zaina, just for bringing this all together. It's amazing. And I just hope, I can't imagine what you're all going through. And I just hope with all of this, it just keeps you motivated to tell the story and to be able to tell the story in a situation that you're all living through. That is all part of the story. Yeah, and you've got to own that and embrace it. So these are, very powerful ingredients to the story. Okay. Thank you, Ariane. Okay, everybody. With that, we'll say goodnight. Okay.
Thank you very much for joining us. It was a pleasure, and thanks. I will share your document on our Slack for everybody. You can just go to Slack and find the documents there.
Okay.
Thank you. This was delightful and very, very, very easy guide to implement strategic storytelling, if you call it. Thank you. Have a great night. Bye-bye.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
That was great.
Good night.
Thank you.
Bye-bye, guys. See you next week.